What's up, world? My name is Corey Stay Trapping, where we're here at Trap Talks, where we discuss the intersection of culture and tech. And today I have the lovely guest, Dr. Kike Oduba. Um, make sure I pronounce that right. Thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up.
She's a doctor by training, but I would say an entrepreneur by life experiences, right? So she is the CEO and founder of Wellness Wits. I'll let her explain more what Wellness Wits does. She's the VIP ambassador for Mass Challenge, entrepreneur in residence for Health Wildcatters. Okay, that's a unique name. Um, and yeah, so she's a very inspirational person. I actually, met her, I met you at the Ion and you were pitching, and it's very rare. I don't see many trained doctors becoming entrepreneurs, right? It seems like those are like two separate sides of the brain. But yeah, so was there anything I missed? Was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Um, you pretty much summed it up very well. The other things that I do is I had mentioned earlier to you during our discussions that I'm from Nigeria, I'm African, and so I like to bridge the gaps between the diaspora and Africa. And so I am the convener of an initiative called the Reinventing Healthcare in Africa initiative, where I bring policymakers, government, entrepreneurs, stakeholders, and high profile people together to solve specific problems as it relates to healthcare. So that's one of the things that I've been working on, and it kind of helps my business also grow its footprints. And so, yeah, that's the only thing I can add to your introduction.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I like that you said that, and it actually leads me to my first question. I know what the diaspora means, but for the lay person who may not know what that means, what is the diaspora? What does that actually mean?
That's a good question. So the diaspora is anywhere outside of home for, anyone who lives in Africa or who hails from Africa. And so for us who were born there and migrated out of Africa to come to either the US or the UK or Germany, Canada, anywhere, it's like going from a third world country where you come from to a, advanced country where there is infrastructure, there is opportunities for innovation and growth. That's typically what we call diaspora. And so we Nigerians, Ghanaians, Cameroonians, Togolese folks who didn't grow up here but have established a lifestyle, in the US, in the United States or in the Western world, we're now considered Nigerians or Africans in diaspora. And so that's what it means when you say diaspora in my own context.
Got it. Got it. Would you, because I've heard it from the context of basically anyone who has African descent is a part of diaspora. So, I'm African American, but then you got Afro-Brazilian, so on and so forth. Would you also clump them into that, or would you specifically look at Africans who left the continent just recently and kind of spread their wings?
Potentially, yes, if you can identify, your immediate family members that are from there. Meaning, so for example, my own children were born in the United States. However, they've only visited once. And so they know their family members in Nigeria. They know my parents, they know their dad's parents, they know their uncles and aunties. And so they will be considered Nigerians or Africans in diaspora, even though they were born here. Now,
Mhm.
I have a cousin whose mother is African American, right? He's not considered a Nigerian or African in diaspora as such because he's never really been outside the United States as much. He doesn't live the life of, somebody who migrated from Africa or a country, a third world country to live in. He has the full US experience and he just lives like an American. So if you are an African American and you have strong ties in the homeland, that identifies you as an African, then you are also an African in diaspora. But to be honest, essentially, we all are Africans in diaspora because our source and our origin is not from here. So technically you are, but it's more common, to say because we left Nigeria or Africa early on, or later on, sorry, in our life, we're considered more of diasporans. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I haven't heard anybody explain it that way. I think most of the people I've heard explain what the diaspora is, they come from more of like a Black empowerment or African empowerment, right? When you hear about Marcus Garvey or Malcolm X and things of that sort, I've heard most people talk about diaspora in that aspect, not from what you're saying. So, um, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really interesting to see the dynamics.
right, right,
uh, how you identified in your country and how you identified in other places. At the end of the day, it's how relevant you are in any environment you find yourself. So, like the whole essence of us coming together as diasporans is we don't want to lose sight of where we come from. We want to still be impactful, in our home countries. And so, interestingly enough, yesterday I was talking to an American, I mean, African American who is a multi-millionaire, potentially a billionaire even, and he was talking about doing projects in Africa, right? Talking about massive, infrastructure they want to build and all of that. And the question at the back of my mind is, why are you doing like, why are you so interested in this? This is so unique,
Mhm.
and talking like us, feeling our pain and passion and to me, he's African. He's not just an African American. He is African because he has the true interest, passion of developing Africa. And so I say all of that to say this, that it doesn't really matter, really, where you hail from, where you're born. It's where is your heart right now?
right.
Identify there and be, impactful there. So yeah.
And to add to that, what I was speaking to around what my and I just did a search is actually Pan-Africanism, what I was talking about when you think of Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X, right? So that's actually different from diaspora. I was kind of conflating them as two, but they're two different things. So yeah, yeah,
Definitely, definitely two different things.
yeah, yeah. Um, so how did you make your way to the US?
It's a good question. So, back in 2009, I had been, actually, that wasn't the first time I was in the US. I'd been in the US maybe in 2007 for a conference because I was, as a student, and I was in medical school then, I was quite curious about global health. Like, what are the things happening in healthcare in other countries? And so, some of my professors would travel to go present, and I'll just tag along. I mean, they'll be like, you can come as long as your parents pay your ticket fees. So I'll tell my dad, hey, dad, some of my professors and friends are going to this country. I want to go attend. And my dad was always super supportive of my adventures, as a student. So I did come to the US in 2009 to get to start an internship with the New York Public Health Department, NYC Public Health Department. And that was my first experience of working in a foreign country. And I saw how there was so much organization and structure. The work ethics were just different from what I experienced back home, where back home it's like how do I expect explain everybody has an entrepreneur spirit, so each man for his own, God for us all, really. And so people are striving to make that next paycheck, and so we kind of lose sight of why we're doing what we do. People are not really about innovation or community service in a way that benefits everyone. So to me, it seemed different to be in New York, and people were working for the government and genuinely wanting to see a change. They were trying to make New York City public health better. So that really fascinated me. So by the end of 2009, I graduated from medical school. That was around November. and got married December. Better believe it, because my dad was like, "If you're leaving this country, you better be leaving married." So, thankfully, I had a fiance then, and he was coming to the United States to get his master's degree, and so we decided, like, okay, yes, we'll get married before we leave the country. So we got married in December, and January we flew down to the United States to get his master's started. And I, as a medical person, had to write board exams to convert my degree from the Nigerian known medical degree to the US degree. And so mine was MBBS, and here in the United States, you get an MD, but you have to do the USMLEs, United States medical licensing exams, for you to be qualified as an MD. So I did take those exams, passed, and I've become a board certified foreign medical graduate who now, is able to do residency and practice in the United States. And so, however, I didn't pursue that for too long, which I'll explain later should the conversation lead there, how I became an entrepreneur. But yes, that's how I became an immigrant in the United States, wanting to come and explore opportunities to be able to do public health and also learn more about healthcare, on a global scale.
Got it. Got it. So what was it like making that transition though? Because Nigeria has a way different culture than America. And I'm not going to act like I understand Nigerian culture. Um, but there's a lot of Nigerians that I mean, when I went to college, it was like when you look at a country, when I was at UNC Chapel Hill, and it was like most Africans who, they were Nigerian. I'm like, wow, like, so it was like Nigerians are taking over, right? And here in Houston, it's kind of the same, the same thing, right?
I don't know if you've heard this term before, this phrase, Naija they carry last, meaning if you're Nigerian, you won't be found last anywhere. We show up literally everywhere, every nook and cranny of the world, you'll
Yeah,
find a Nigerian. Some people consider it annoying, like, how are you everywhere? But,
yeah,
that's just the fighting spirit in Nigerians. We're a huge population of over almost 200 million people. And so because Nigeria has its own challenges. We've gone through several political issues before. Certain things were just making the country unstable, and so people just tend to exit the country. But for me, it wasn't really hard in integrating myself into the American culture and society because I'm well traveled. I've been to Greece. I mean, before I came to the US, I'd been to Greece. I'd been to Europe. I lived in the UK for a little bit. My family actually started off in the United Kingdom. My parents went back to Nigeria, and then after every one of us finished college, we all just migrated to the UK. So all my four siblings live now in the UK, and I'm the only one in the United States because I'm always the one who tends to do something different, from the pack. So I am here in the US, but it wasn't so hard because I'd been traveling. I'd come to the United States, like I said, I lived in New York for about a month, and I already understood the culture to some degree. Some things were challenging. For example, back home, you don't make phone calls before you show up in somebody's house. You just show up like, hey, how is it going? But here, when we first came and we just showed up, and they're like, whoa, you should have called me before you made it here. And we're like, oh, we didn't realize, So that was a kind of rude
yeah.
shock. Like, don't just show up. You're not welcome just any day, anytime. And so, but I think those are the things that makes Africa beautiful because there's such a strong social connection you feel with people such that people are expecting you. In fact, some people will get mad at you, like, I haven't seen you in a month. You didn't even think to come check on me, that type thing. So there was that difference, but that was almost 15 years ago, right? Now, if you go to Nigeria, you want to go visit someone, you better call because everybody's now on Instagram, Facebook, phones are ubiquitous. And so you should be able to make a phone call before you show up. So that was different back then. The other thing was also the food, food was just cheesy and greasy here, and the sizes and the portion sizes were massive. I was like, whoa, how do people eat that? So initially I was like eating and like super so like, are you telling me for just $1 I can get a hot dog? All of that was kind of different. And so I found it fascinating. And then also initially when I came to the United States, people were quite surprised that I spoke good English. I mean, I'd hear people say, "You speak quite well." And the back of my mind was like, what does quite well mean? I just speak English. So I've had people pass comments like, well, we thought you never spoke English in Nigeria. What are the schools like? Were you taught English in school? And I'm thinking, yeah, we speak British English in Nigeria. People were
Right.
questioning, like, how did you know how to use this and that? I'm thinking, you realize Lagos is an urban city, right? What
Yeah.
what what you have in the Western world, in the UK or in the US, like if a new car is released in the US today, you can be very sure in a week a Nigerian has bought it in Nigeria.
Yeah.
That's how, vain we get when it comes to the latest in fashion, in, trappings and things like that. So Nigeria is that way. So it wasn't hard really for me to get integrated and imbibe, the American culture in my lifestyle.
Mm. Yeah, like I remember when I was in San Francisco and I'm African American and this lady, I think she was Asian, but I don't think she was from here. And she's like, "So where are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm from the US." But then I thought about it, I'm like, I think the way that American culture is kind of like promoted across the world is that New York is like that city where people think that all Americans talk like that, right? And so to me, I kind of was like, wow, are we supposed to talk like New York? I was actually born in New York, but I grew up in North Carolina, so I have a little twang when I talk or whatever, right? But um, and I've actually gotten that compliment before, like, wow, you're very well spoken. And when I was younger, I didn't really know what that means, but now I'm like, what?
Exactly. It's kind of,
Like,
yeah.
it's not really a compliment. You may think so, but it's not.
Yeah, yeah. It's true. I mean, some people make it a point of duty to educate others when they say that, but the way I have handled that was to continue speaking, and soon enough you'd learn about me, and where I'm from. And my being well spoken is not a function of where I'm from or my background, but it's a function of who I am as a person who tries to be a self-learner and
Hmm.
develop myself to learn how to communicate and speak, to people. Wherever I go, I should be able to present, myself in a way that helps you understand who I am and what I stand for. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I educate people by showing, not by telling.
Yeah. Same here. I remember I was talking to I was working at this blockchain company and I don't know, me and the owner or the boss was talking about race and stuff. And I was like, I don't want to be I'm like, this is at the time it was like 2018. I'm like, it's 2018. I'm not trying to be the first black person to join a company. Like, if I got to be the first, I don't want to join it. He kind of looked at me and was like, he didn't expect that answer, you know, because what I come to realize is that you got to be in places that are inclusive of you,
Yeah.
right? And I don't want to be someone's PR stunt. It's
Mm.
like it's
I do.
more the environment that you're creating. So
Totally, totally. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I've seen some of that in many places. I mean, I lived in Colorado for a little bit, and Colorado is not as diverse as Houston or New York. And so I just didn't understand it when folks I mean, I'd be in a place and there would be only me and my family as the only blacks. Like our neighborhood, we were the like, only black family
Mm.
in the whole neighborhood. Of course, it was a nice neighborhood. Certain people couldn't live there because of the cost of living, but it just surprised me, and so having to deal with people not realizing that you're part of them, because of how you look. And my kids were the only Black kids in the school as well, the actual school, except for one kid who comes from a mixed family. And so we kind of found it a bit challenging trying to help the children kind of understand, like, hey, you're the same as everyone, don't feel like you're different. But you still see traces of that. So being the first Black person in any place is going to be a challenge. But the good news is it kind of breaks through for other people to be able to come and open up, you open up that opportunity for people to write on your own success, and example of how you've been able to chart the course within that organization. But, I feel, the definite impact of having to be different, in an environment and not being able to really explain how you're supposed to behave or feel or relate if everybody thinks you're different.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what are so okay, so oh yeah, this is a question I have, and I have a cousin who's a medical doctor too. What actually makes medical school so hard?
That's a great question. So medical school, okay, let me put it this way. Medical school itself is not what's hard. It's the responsibility that comes with medical school that makes it hard, in the sense that you're literally learning to save human lives, right?
Hmm.
So the onus is on you to better know your stuff. And so that translates into the kind of tests you're given, the kind of experiences you have to go through to be able to show that you're capable of making quick and accurate decisions when lives are involved. And so with that, it kind of puts a lot of strain on you and stress on you as a student to match up to certain, responsibilities and expectations, not only from your professors who are trying to get you trained, but also from your colleagues who depend on you doing your job and your part for everybody to be able to, because think about it, no doctor works in isolation. It's always a medical team. Every doctor needs a nurse, needs a medical assistant or a pharmacist to work with, or a lab technician, to collaborate with. And so when you're not able to uh, go through medical school with certain sets of responsibility, it kind of trickles down to other things as it relates to healthcare. And so medical school itself, to me, is fun because you have people who are very, what's the word now? Super smart, people who are also forward thinking, trying to learn about the human body. And it's also for me a process of self-discovery, right? As a medical student, I tend to diagnose literally everything in myself. Like if something itches, I'm asking myself a question like, could it be this diagnosis? Could it be that? Or
Yeah.
if I comb my hair and something falls out, I'm like, what does this mean? Your hair falls off naturally every day. So why are you concerned? But those are the stresses you go through as a medical student. It's not just the idea of being in medical school or studying medicine. It's about the responsibility. It's about the pressure, of wanting to do your best in school so you can be a good doctor. And then also the length of time, if you were doing medical school for only 4 years, that's fine. But you're not only doing medical school for 4 years, you're going to do residency for 3 years, potentially fellowship for another 2 years. So by the time you're done becoming a qualified doctor, you've probably grown like several gray hair and wrinkles on your face, you know? So those are the things behind, the medical school, the idea behind medical school being difficult. Essentially, it's not difficult. It's just the time it takes. And
Mm,
also, and don't forget, before you go into medical school, you must already have a degree.
right.
So
Right.
you've spent 4 years, another 4 years to do medical school, that's 8 years, plus 3 years residency, that's 11, and then possibly 2 years for fellowship to specialize. That's at the minimum, roughly 10 to 13 years just trying to be a qualified doctor.
Mm-mm.
That's hard. You must have the grit, the willpower, and you need to have the what's the word? The the,
Stamina.
the stamina to go through that for so many years. So but at the end of the day, it's a very rewarding profession. But what's unfortunate is this, and I'll tie in my own story as well. Many doctors, after going through that process, end up leaving the profession like not too long after graduation of practicing. Some people just decide not to even practice anymore.
Oh,
And
wow.
why is that? Yes, so the statistics from the American Medical Association, which I am a part of in their Physician Innovation Network, the statistics shows that 2 out of every 5 doctors are leaving the profession, are planning to leave the profession in 2 years. So think about what's going to happen 5, 10 years from now when most doctors are exiting. Most people are not going to medical, like young folks right now don't want to spend that long going to school. That's just the truth. Because now they
I
know
was,
they, right, you look at that, right? People now can become physician assistants, you can become a medical assistant, a nurse practitioner, and spend less time but still do the same thing, right? Difference is you may not make as much money, but guess what? Folks are making money now in this digital world with digital health, telemedicine, traveling nurses. You can make much more than a doctor in this day and age. So, what's the purpose? What's the use? So, many doctors are realizing I don't have to do this. If I want to make money, I can make money, doing other things. And then don't forget that not only do doctors work as physicians in practice, you can also work as a medical director for a lab. You can work in a biotech company, work in pharmaceuticals. So you don't have to be seeing patients to really be successful as a physician. But then those things can also be achieved by getting other degrees. So the doctor degree is not as sexy or as attractive as it used to be back in the day. And nowadays, doctors are getting less, what's the word now? They're kind of getting a bad rap from the consumers because of recent events, like the pandemic, a lot of conspiracy theories against doctors. And so doctors are feeling the burnout. They're feeling the pressure of, why am I really doing this? I could be doing something else. So essentially, a lot of doctors are exiting the profession. What now happens is you have a population of people who are reliant on the internet, for medical help
yeah.
insurance. Because what happens eventually when you have less doctor shortages of healthcare workforces is that people begin to wait long time for appointments. To get an appointment after being diagnosed with a psychiatric problem would take at least 45 days for you to see a doctor. And
Mm.
more than half of the psychologists in America today are not taking on new patients. They are overwhelmed. So there is a huge shortage already. So 5, 10 years from now, there's a massive problem that's going to hit the United States healthcare environment. And so I am seeing this as an opportunity for people to become innovative. And so that's part of why I became an entrepreneur, because I walked through the health system in the US whereby I was a patient and I didn't get the care that I needed. And, it was life-threatening for me, actually. And rather than sitting on the sidelines waiting for somebody to treat me, I had to take matters in my own hands. And I realized that healthcare consumerism seems to be a problem, but it is a solution for so many people because they have no choice. They're not able to access their doctors as much as they want to. If you have a major health problem, 15 minutes is not enough for you to be in an appointment with a doctor. You need care, you know? Then how many doctors want to sit with you 20, 30, 40 minutes trying to figure out what's really wrong with you? Best case scenario is you get lab tests drawn and you get a prescription saying, based on this diagnosis, be on these drugs. But how about the way you're sleeping? How about what you're eating? How about your ability to even show up for your next appointment? Or if you were supposed to get a procedure, how do you even prepare for that procedure? You know what I mean? I mean, imagine the number of people who need to get colonoscopies done, and then they get to the colonoscopy and they are told they have to reschedule because they are not properly prepped. Your bowels need to be prepped for a colonoscopy, or else it's a waste because the doctor can't see through your pipes to really find out what's going on. But these patients are not well educated because they didn't get enough time with the doctor or the care team to prepare them for what the procedure is supposed to be. So I say all of that to say this, that going to medical school is one thing. Enjoying the profession of being a doctor is another thing. Staying as a doctor is also, if I feel like it's more difficult staying a doctor than going to medical school in this.
Wow.
Yep, that's
Wow.
that's the truth.
Wow. So you said something interesting when you talked about, you said 2 out of 5 doctors are leaving within 2 years.
Mhm.
Um, so my fiance is actually a travel nurse, and I read this article that said in I think 2023 or 2022, it said 400,000 um nurses were leaving the bedside,
Oh, wow.
and it a lot of it coincides with what you're talking about. So do you believe, and you kind of already said it, but um, how do you believe the pandemic has impacted the actual healthcare worker?
You know, I think the pandemic in itself pretty much just exposed what already existed, in the sense that we've always known that we didn't have the infrastructure or the resources to keep going the way we are in America or even many countries of the world. We have the problem of over demand for healthcare simply because people are getting sicker and sicker, and also because the population of the country is aging, really. And so people are having less kids, and the baby boomers are growing older and they're demanding care. So we know there is a short supply. So COVID coming just showed us how bad the problem was or is. And so it kind of put more strain, more demand on the system, and essentially made a lot of people realize that I don't want to do this. This is not what I signed up for. And so many people started leaving the profession. But the good news is also the fact that the pandemic brought a lot of innovation into the world. Before the pandemic, people were not really like, people wouldn't believe it was okay to be on a telehealth visit with their doctor. People wouldn't normally opt for that,
Yeah,
unless you're tech savvy or your doctor like you have a specific doctor you want to see, and the doctor is only accepting patients via telehealth, you likely will not be in a telehealth appointment. But now we know that I can be in a telehealth visit with my doctor. They can send my labs to the lab and I get my lab done without even seeing my doctor. My doctor doesn't need to feel and touch me before they can diagnose what's going on with me. And even beyond that, now through telehealth, you can have medical devices help your doctor make informed decisions, right? You have the continuous glucose monitors, you have the blood pressure machines, you have the oxygen monitors, all of those things, right? And so the pandemic brought some challenges, but at the same time, its own solutions. So we have this adage in Nigeria, in my native language, that says that it is the white man who created the pencil that also created the eraser for it. Meaning, you
mm,
have a pencil, you wrote something with it, the same pencil has an eraser attached to it that can help you erase what you've written. Meaning, the pandemic brought its challenges, and as well, it brought its own solutions. So I think we're net positive at the end of the day based on what happened with the pandemic. So technology is solving the problems that we didn't have before the pandemic. I mean, that we already had before the pandemic, but we didn't have those solutions before the pandemic. So that's how I see that really.
yeah. And for me, it forced me to take my health a lot more serious. Like I never really had any crazy like health scare throughout my life, but I did catch COVID, I believe 3 times, but I know for a fact I think twice that I caught it. And I just remember like being in that time how scary it was. Like I didn't want to go around people. Like for the longest, only person I communicated with was my fiance or whoever I talked to over the phone. And it forced me to look at like what supplements do I need to take to make my immune system stronger, right? And I just delved in quicker, like learning stuff like vitamin D. Like I read an article that said like vitamin D deficiency is directly tied to people who succumb to COVID or people who succumb to COVID tend to have one or two underlying health issues like diabetes or hypertension, right? Or, people who have a lot of visceral fat. I haven't read it directly, but effectively, if you look at the connection between diabetes and visceral stomach fat, it's like a strong connection between the two. And so it forced me to like really educate myself. And then having a fiance as a medical professional, you get the other side of it. Um, because medical, this is a very general statement, but I believe that most medical, if not all of them, really care about patients. However, the strains of their own life and the strain of the system, which you was talking about, doesn't always allow them to put their best foot forward with every patient. And so for me, I'm like, I'm gonna keep taking these supplements, I'm gonna work out just so that I'm putting myself in the best position if I do get sick. Because it's not a question of if you're going to get sick, is when, right? And then can your immune system handle that? So um, it really just forced me to be more health conscious, with it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
totally, totally. And I'm sure a lot of people had the same, what's the word now? I don't want to say scare, but everybody kind of got that awareness, like we need to do better for our health. But guess what? Most people's got short memory, right? We're back to bad habits and, how many of us are still taking those supplements and all of that? So healthcare would always be essential, except for, I mean, a few people who still have that discipline and stickiness to want to continue. But we've got to do better as a society, to keep educating, to keep innovating on how to improve our health. And the onus is on the patient, on the consumers, really, because you're your best advocate for your health, not anyone. Your doctors, I mean, you're just a statistic for most doctors. You're just patient X, but you are you to yourself. That's what I tell people. Advocate for yourself. It's the unfortunate truth, but that's what I realized when I became a patient. And so, yeah.
yeah, yeah. When I just did my I had some labs done. I was just asking my doctor a bunch of questions. She's actually Nigerian too, interesting enough. She hasn't told me, but I looked at her last name and I was like, yeah, she's definitely Nigerian. But yeah, I asked her like a ton of questions, like because I'm like, I need to know, and I don't have, like I said, all my stuff came back great. Like I don't have any red flags, but it's just because like I'm one of those people who started taking supplements, and because I used to take a multivitamin. And then I learned that multivitamins aren't good because it's impossible to get everything you need in one pill, right? And so that's where the eating right, and then I take like a couple different supplements and stuff. But yeah, that's the hard part, right? To remain diligent about what scared you in the past. So
Yep. Yep. It's like COVID never happened, the way
yeah,
we live now. You would think like everybody would still have their mask on today because COVID still exists, right? So it's like we've forgotten what it felt like. And it's kind of good. I like that normalcy is back, but we mustn't go back to our old mistakes because guess what? Another pandemic will come. That's
yeah,
just, the circle of life. Everybody's still exposed to something, and there will always be new variants of something, So are we going to be prepared for the next one?
yeah.
I'm not so sure, So we'll see. Let's hope for the best.
And like the last, I forgot where I learned this at, but these type of events happen every 100 years. So the last time we had a pandemic that was of this magnitude, and I don't want to come off as downplaying like the bird flu and SARS that happened in Asia, but those weren't global. They was more like Asian specific. But the Spanish flu
Mm.
was like I would say probably equal, and that was like the early 1900s or whatever. I think my grandma was living at that time, around that time. Yeah, she would think she was. Yeah, I think she was either born after or like right around that time or whatever. And I
Mm.
remember, I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but basically, they said effectively the same cure for the Spanish flu was the same cure for COVID, having a
Mm.
strong immune system.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
I don't doubt that.
yeah,
I totally believe so. I mean, it's your first defense against anything.
yeah.
Even if it's not an infectious disease, if you ever come down with an accident, that God forbid, like somebody has an accident, let me give you this scenario. If they come out of that accident with just injuries, right? Those injuries would only heal because their immune system works, right? Their ability to recover from the injuries is dependent on how much bleeding did they have, how big is the cut, is it infected? So your immune system plays a part, whether it's an acute event, a chronic disease, or even a pandemic of sort, right? So whatever we do, our first line of defense against anything in our health is your immune system.
Hmm.
So, during the pandemic, that was what I was ringing out. I was saying, hey, you need to learn how to optimize your immune system. You just never know. Even pregnant women, when you get pregnant, the first thing you need to keep up is your immune system, because immune system actually reduces in its ability to fight when you're pregnant. And the same thing for children as well. Children have their immune system still developing. You need it up. And then as you age, your immune system begins to decline as well. So you can't say it enough. The immune system definitely needs to be paid attention to.
Yeah. And I got something I want to say, but I want to get your thoughts on it. Do you think it's good for kids to play in dirt growing up?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, absolutely. And the thought behind it, I think have you heard of the word microbiome before?
I believe so, yeah. I believe so.
Your microbiome is the bacteria population in your now your gut holds about 80% of your immune system. And your immune system is mostly modulated by vitamin D. That's why the vitamin D connection came about during COVID, right?
Um,
So, yeah, if you don't, the first place you get your bacteria indoctrination is through your mother's birth canal, right? So when a child is born, you're expected to have some of your mother's bacteria. Even if you were born with cesarean section through surgery, you will still get some of your mother's bacteria. Guess whose bacteria is next that you jumps on you when you're born?
the doctors.
Exactly. The doctors and the nurses in the um what's it called, the newborn room. And so the whole point is this: the moment you enter into this world, you're exposed to bacteria and germs. But the thing is, as you begin to consume food and you begin to get, in the environment, more bacteria gets inside you and becomes stable. So good bacteria begins to adapt to your body and help your body develop its immunity, while some bad bacteria will train your body to identify them as bad and eliminate them whenever you get them in high doses. And so your microbiome is something you build over the years. And so the best way to make sure your body adapts to certain types of bacteria is to be in dirt. Not necessarily like being in dirt, but at least don't be a germaphobe as a child, Allow your children to play in the grass, allow them to go out hiking, if they fall on the ground, dust their body and allow them to go back on the playground. Don't be, so germ-free that when you now grow up and encounter a type of germ, your body doesn't know what to do with it, right? And then you get sick unnecessarily. So that's the thought behind that. But more importantly, as people grow older, even in our age group, we tend to get exposed to things that kills the microbiome, things like high fructose corn syrup. alcohol, and even things like drugs, medications, antibiotics. And that's why there is a huge control on how you get antibiotics. You probably notice your doctors don't immediately prescribe antibiotics for you unless it's extremely necessary, because there is something called resistance, right? Antimicrobial resistance from superbugs. And so bugs that are normal to you can become a superbug because you've now trained it by using antibiotics. They can become a superbug by being resistant to that antibiotic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so microbiome is super duper important. And so if you have, as a child, encountered a lot of bugs growing up, you're going to have a diversity of a microbiome. Your microbiome is going to be very diverse, such that you'll have a high population of certain types of bacteria that are actually beneficial, like Bacteriophidium, lactobacilli, and all sorts that actually help you. If you go to the grocery stores, check out certain types of yogurt, you see they list the type of bacteria that actually lives in that yogurt. It's good for you because it actually helps your microbiome grow more good bacteria and identify when there is a bad player amongst your microbiome to expel it. So there are some that are not so great. Don't forget as well, bacteria lives on your skin, lives in your air, your armpits, your parts, like different parts of your body. And so you can't escape bacteria. But then how do you respond to a bacteria that has become virulent, in the sense that it causes humans to be sick? So think about what happened with the pandemic now. We're living with COVID and we don't even know it, right? It's because it's become endemic, meaning it
Mm.
has now become part of our ecosystem, right? We now have herd immunity, whether through vaccines or just by being infected with it, and now our body has grown in resistance to it. So that's part of why you have to be exposed to bugs. Exposure to them makes your body learn how to live nicely and play nicely with them.
Mm. Mm. So what would you so what would you say is like the top three foods that adults should eat?
Top three foods adults should eat? That's a great question. You need a lot of fiber. In fact, before I say that, I like this popular saying, which is not absolute, but it's wise to keep at the back of your mind, that all disease begin in the gut. Like if you were to be sick, you can source the reason why that sickness is affecting you badly from your gut. And so that gives you the idea that whatever you put in your gut would affect how your health manifests, right? And so I like the idea of food as medicine. So when you say three things that you need as an adult or even a child to stay healthy, are through three kinds of foods that help your gut stay healthy, and that's fiber. I would also say a lot of what's it called, probiotics, to keep your gut microbiome consistently healthy. And the third thing is I'll say good protein, right? You need to have protein to maintain your muscle strength. Sorry, one of my kids is right here and he's talking. Tommy, you need to go now. I'm in a meeting. Take your paper and go. I'll call you. All right, take him. I'm in a meeting. Sorry about that. You can edit it out, right?
Yeah, I can, but I might keep it.
So yeah, he's been here the whole time, making faces at me, speaking in low. I'm like trying to ignore his cute face. But anyways, he's out of the room now. So, all right. So yeah, you need protein, and protein is also a good way to maintain body weight. Now, I would like to answer the question in reverse, right? What are the things you should not be eating? Stay away from high fructose corn syrup, like high sugar foods, highly processed and refined foods as well. Stay away from. And the third thing I'll say to stay away from would be too much dairy. And the reason why I say that is because I take dairy, don't get me wrong. I eat some cheese, some type of cheese. But what I'll say is that dairy has a way of modifying the microbiome and changing how your gut functions. And so I'll say do not indulge in too much dairy consumption because also dairy has been so infiltrated with a lot of hormones that are being fed to the to the cattle that produces the dairy. And I feel like it kind of exposes your body to things that you're not even aware that you're consuming. And so um, be cautious of how you eat dairy, but more importantly, really, is highly refined processed foods and tons of sugar, especially high fructose corn syrup. I'll say stay clear of as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. And to go back, you was talking about there was a couple of things I wanted to point out. You mentioned about why doctors now are apprehensive about assigning out antibiotics. It made me think of Chick-fil-A. They just announced that they're going to start putting antibiotics in the chicken that aren't essential to humans. And so when you were talking about the connection, I just made that connection in my mind, like, wow, that correlates with what you're just saying, right? They understand like because I guess traditionally they hadn't been using any type of for what they I guess say, but it that made me think of that. The other thing you mentioned probiotics. I love kombucha. I think I drink it every day.
Right.
Um, yeah, because I started drinking it. Uh, I started drinking it because I like to drink alcohol or whatever in moderation. But I found that when I would drink, if I overindulge on alcohol, that the kombucha would actually make me feel a lot better because usually it would upset my stomach. But yeah, so when you said probiotics, I was like, oh, okay, kombucha. She
Yeah,
gave
yeah.
she gave the FDA approval. She doesn't work for FDA. I'm making a joke here, but yeah.
Totally. Kombucha is really good. It's a great probiotic. Anything that is fermented potentially can be a probiotic. But the part we shouldn't forget are prebiotics, and that's why I mentioned fiber. Fiber is great prebiotics and for feeding the probiotics in your gut. And so best way to get fiber from green leafy vegetables, roots and nuts. Those are great for you. When I mentioned protein, I wanted to also say that when you get protein, always try and get lean protein. And so that kind of helps because red meat, has its own, what's the word now? There are some challenges with eating red meat in high quantities because it exposes you to the potential of colon cancer and if not
And
properly
prostate cancer. Prostate
treated,
cancer. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, so eat more of fish, salmon is great, cod, and then chicken, is also great. I love shrimps as well. But at the end of the day, whatever you eat in moderation and make sure that what you're eating is for strength and not just for pleasure, in the sense that if you're trying to eat for pleasure, you're going to end up eating a lot of sugar and carbs. But if you're eating for strength and vitality and health, you'll focus on healthy fatty foods like nuts and avocados and proteins, like fish, um, chicken. And then on top of that, a little bit about multivitamins. I do encourage people to take some, but very strategic in the way you take it, in the sense that you don't want to take multivitamins for the sake of just taking it. You're taking it to prepare your body to remain satisfied with specific nutrients in such a way that you're not craving foods that are empty calorie, that are just, empty calories and not nutritious for you. And so multivitamins, because what you find is a lot of people are actually craving food. They're not hungry, they're craving food. And the reason why you crave most times is because there are some micronutrient deficiencies that you're not aware of, right? And your natural body begins to produce hormones that are making you feel super hungry, right? And so with that, if your cells are well fed, I say cells now because I'm talking at the micro level when you're talking about micronutrients like zinc, magnesium, uh, calcium, potassium. If you're lacking in those things, your body knows it. And so at the cellular level, you should have fed your body. So all those micronutrients are necessary to keep your body in a balanced state so that you're not unnecessarily producing hormones that are making you hungry. And so when you're eating with very good what's the word now? You're with good control of what you're eating. You're not just eating food, you're eating because you know you need to feed your body and your body knows it needs to feed itself. So those are my thoughts, about nutrition. It's quite interesting how we got into this, but I've enjoyed
Yeah.
chatting about food and nutrition.
Yeah.
Something people know about me is that I am also a huge fan of nutrition. I consider myself a nutritionist, and I've actually done a lot of work with folks in functional medicine and functional nutrition, where you talk about food as medicine, lifestyle medicine, integrative medicine, personalized medicine, all of those things, which relates to how you eat, how your body responds to food, and how, lifestyle plays into your health. So those are things that I'm very excited about.
Yeah, and I like how you said the difference between craving and hungry. So craving is your body is saying, I need this. Hungry is just you just want food, just
No,
part
no, 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 that's the opposite. So hungry
opposite.
is your body actually needs it because you need the calories and the nutrients. But craving is just, I just want to eat. I just want food. You don't need it, but you want it. So I think the difference is the need and the want. You
One.
want because you crave because you want, but you eat, or you're hungry because you need to
Yeah.
eat.
Okay, so I got one more food question. Um, what are your thoughts on smoothies? Are they good, bad? What are your general thoughts on smoothies?
I think smoothies are great. It's an easy way to consume nutrients without having the need to super digest it. It means the initial digestion part has been done for you, really. What's the purpose of your mouth? You're chewing in your mouth
Right.
is to break down food, right? So everything you eat and put in your mouth becomes a smoothie at the end of the day. That's just the truth, time, right? And so when you have your food already in a smoothie, all you need to do is gulp it and it's in your stomach, already almost done digesting. So that's my take on smoothies. I think they're just already super digested food that's easy to consume and absorb by your body. Three things you need to understand when you eat, right? There is a process of chewing your food and your body then digests it. Aside from digesting the food in your stomach, your body needs to assimilate the food, right? Meaning after it leaves your stomach, it needs to be absorbed into your body. After it's been absorbed in your body, then it needs to be assimilated into your different cells. So the point here is this: it doesn't matter what the portal is or the mode of entry is or mode of digestion, as long as your body can assimilate and absorb nutrients into your cells. I mean, how do people who are in coma living on IV nutrition, how are they surviving? How is their body still alive? It's because their body is absorbing and assimilating. It's not digesting, but it's absorbing and assimilating nutrients. So that's the whole point, really, in consuming food. So with smoothies, it's just a super digested food that is easy to absorb and assimilate for the body.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, thanks for that. Because I've heard argument that smoothies are bad because if you look at a banana, it actually they said if you eat a banana regular, it has like almost very low calories, but when you blend it, it makes it more calories or whatever. I forgot where I read that at, but yeah,
Depends. I mean, garbage in, garbage out in your smoothie jar, I tell you. If
yeah,
you put one banana in a smoothie jar and you add water in it and it's only that banana, whatever calories was in that banana before you put it in a smoothie is the same thing. But now, if you added apples, strawberries, blueberries, added some juice or sugar, then you're stacking on the calories. So I think that's where the idea comes from. You're tempted to add more calories if you put food in a smoothie. But I think it depends on how you do it, really. Nothing is wrong with you eating a banana on top of like put a cup of bananas strawberry, blueberry here, and a cup of the exact same thing with water added as a smoothie. Calories in, calories out. It's the same exact amount of calories. The
Right.
only thing I would say though, you see, banana has quite some fiber, right? Fiber is what helps your body, move out
Out.
easily, right? Certain foods, if you blend them into a smoothie, the fiber aspect has become broken down. And so that sweeping effects might be lost in that process. But there is something called resistant starch, right? That doesn't get digested or absorbed as such in your stomach. The idea of some of these fibers foods is to keep you full long enough so you're not craving or feeling hungry after a few hours. But when you drink smoothies, you're more likely than not, to get hungry quicker than if you eat your food as a whole and the fiber remains in your stomach. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So go ahead.
I've noticed that because I switched from doing smoothies to just eating fruit, and I find it I'm like less
Hungry.
hungry. Yeah.
That's the whole idea. Like I said, it's just the digestion. Like smoothie is just your food digested for you. So you absorb it quicker and assimilate it quicker because it's already broken down into pieces for you. And so, yeah, it has its pros and its cons. But for people who need nutrients fast, I think smoothies are great because it allows your body quickly absorb it. So it depends, really. But to me, it doesn't make a difference as long as you're eating a full balanced diet, right? Maybe morning smoothie, afternoon a proper salad for lunch, and then in the evening a light, maybe you know, maybe 4 pounds of salmon, or maybe you have even cauliflower rice and broccoli. And if you want to have carbs, you can eat some rice as well. Beans are great, but my whole point is not eating foods that are highly processed, like eating pizza for lunch. You're having a sandwich every day, white bread, all of those things that
But
add those extra pounds around your waist. And, and then snacking habits we have in the US, like, oh God, the chips, the crisps, the Kit Kats, the sneakers. I'm like, whose idea was it that Kit Kat was great for lunch? Like, it's like, whose idea was it saying because there's peanuts in sneakers, it's healthy for you? Like, no, sneakers are not healthy for you, but a lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
engineering keeps you coming back, a lot of marketing keeps you confused. And
Right.
a lot of TV and online ads makes you feel good about what you're doing. Like, yes, and this is for me, but the truth is, it's really bad. So anyway, I didn't plan on taking a jab on the food industry, but I'm just saying, like this isn't good
I
for us.
agree. I agree. Which kind of leads me to a point that I want to start talking about wellness with. It's like you think about, I always like to think about who benefits from said action, right?
Mhm.
And so, we eat as Americans, we have a poor diet, um, poor behaviors, right? Smoking tobacco, drinking alcohol excessively, you can name it. Who benefits from that, right? Um, you just think about who does that actually benefit? Us poisoning ourselves. Like who's making money off of this, right? Like um and so I mean we can go on and create this whole elaborate like bar chart like they benefit from this and they benefit from that and it's kind of wild like when you think about it, so
Indeed, indeed. I'd say this. Um, Look out for yourself, right? In fact, I think when we're done, I'm going to make a closing statement and it will all make sense. Nobody cares for you like you do, whether it's your doctor, your insurance company, the pharmaceutical companies, the labs. I'm talking as it relates to your healthcare, right? Nobody can provide you healthcare like you can. Your health belongs and begins in your kitchen, how you're eating. is the first point of call when you talk about your health. Because at the end of the day, if you take out food from somebody's life, what happens? The life no longer exists, no nourishment, right? So imagine when you're adding bad food in your body, that means food has the potential to either keep you alive or kill you. It's that simple. Food could either be could be medicine or poison. You take your pick. What do you want it to be for you?
Exactly.
Who benefits? I guess it's the people who are engineering the food and selling it to us to come back for more. The
Right.
pharmaceutical companies who are selling us drugs to keep us, sick and not try and use other things to help ourselves feel better. And then, of course, the insurance companies, right, also benefit because you have to pay them to keep getting healthcare. If you had a shot, a confidence and no doubt that I will be healthy because I'm doing all the right things, you wouldn't need insurance, right? But it doesn't work that way. Not everybody who stays healthy, eating healthy, exercising, not smoking or drinking are excluded from cancer. What if
Yeah.
you get a diagnosis, you still need your insurance coverage? So at the end of the day, I'll say do what you can in your own best abilities to do what's good for your health. And God help you stay healthy and alive, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. So yeah, you touched on it a little bit about wellness wits. Where you because I remember when I saw you pitch, you mentioned your health scare and then you had to go in and actually be your own advocate. So tell us about that I like to call it the origin story of Wellness Wits, and then tell us what is, right? What's the future look like, and how you intend on revolutionizing the healthcare experience for patients.
Now that's a great question. Okay, so let me start by saying Wellness Wits is a digital health company for shared medical appointments done in person or online. Online first, by the way, we're a digital first company. I came about the idea of this company about almost 6 years ago. I had been diagnosed with a chronic condition called thyroid disease. It was autoimmune Hashimoto's disease, and I was told the only solution was to take out my thyroid surgically. However, I knew if I'd taken out my thyroid, there was no putting it back in. I'd have to live on drugs for the rest of my life. And so I started, seeing doctors. Nobody was really giving me the help I needed, but I realized that a lot of the things that triggered my symptoms were relating to the food I was eating, the fact that I was under a lot of stress, and I wasn't sleeping well as well. So because of that, I decided, okay, I'm going to go online and search like who out there has got the same symptoms as mine because my symptoms were kind of unusual. I was also diagnosed with idiopathic urticaria and angioedema, meaning my body itches and swells up for different things, with triggers. Come to find out, anyways, from joining a group on Facebook, which had about 1.2 million people talking about their thyroid. Come to find out that vitamin D had a role in my symptoms being so severe. And then also, certain foods could trigger those reactions I was having. And then, thirdly, remember I mentioned about dairy? There is something called cellular mimicry, whereby the protein in milk can be mimicked as a specific antigen on the thyroid that the immune system identifies as foreign and dangerous, and the immune system begins to attack the body. So, for some people, even dairy can cause an autoimmune reaction. So, when you put all of that together, I realized that none of those were addressed by my doctors. So I began to help myself recover by removing dairy. I even removed gluten. I started taking time to really sleep, removed most stressors from my life. Would you believe within 3 months, my thyroid numbers went from 1,121 antibodies down to about 600. It was exactly 600 when I saw the results. Like, wow, almost half of these antibodies are cleared off my system just from lifestyle changes. That was when it rang in my head that I'm not taking out my thyroid. I'm going to keep this going to see how far I could take it. By the 6th month, my numbers were down to about 100, and the rest is history. I didn't take out my thyroid. 3 years in a row, I've been given a clear from my doctors that I no longer have autoimmunity. So, how did that happen? I almost got a surgery, a life-changing, life-altering surgery that I was able to avoid just by making changes to my diet and my lifestyle. Like, no joke. Yes, I did take a few supplements. I took vitamin D, I took magnesium, and a few things just to bring my, because I asked them to get some testing done on my micronutrient levels, and I began to fill up the gaps. Like, okay, I'm low in D, let me now get vitamin D. And so, with that being said, it made me aware of the fact that there is a problem of healthcare consumerism that doctors are not even a part of. And so, with all the misinformation and disinformation, there's also good information. But I also realized in that group that a lot of people had biases against their doctors. Remember, I told you that doctors now have a bad rap amongst consumers. Part of it is that my doctor doesn't spend enough time listening to me. They keep increasing my dose and I'm not feeling better. They don't spend time to explain my drugs, all of that. So, what if doctors are part of groups in which patients can share their lived experiences and ask doctors questions? But then, what is the incentive for a doctor to be in such a group setting? So, I began to do more research. I don't know exactly when the light bulb went off in my head, but I found something online called shared medical appointments, where insurance pays doctors to see their patients in groups as if they've been seen one on one with certain conditions that must be checked off. But that gave me the opportunity to become innovative. Like, how can we make this a platform where doctors can easily complete all the requirements to do their group visits and get reimbursed, and also the patients engage. Patients should not be sharing their health information on Facebook. Facebook is not HIPAA compliant, it's not safe, and it's not a medical platform. So that's why we decided to create Wellness Wits, so people can safely and securely share their information anonymously and have a doctor have oversight on the social narrative they experience regarding their chronic conditions. So that's the backstory of Wellness Wits.
Love it. And there's a couple things that I want to point out because it's like my career, like working in tech and also doing entrepreneurship. One area that I found that's really good for finding innovation is looking at what regulation is, right? And the one thing that I love that you said, you said that you found a stipulation that said that people can have shared appointments within these certain boundaries, right? And that's the excellent part about being what I would call like a domain specific entrepreneur, because there's things that you see as a doctor that I just can't see, right? Um, there was something else that you said too. But yeah, that to me, I'm like, I think you can't say that loud enough. And I've actually have told people like, look at one area, a great area of innovation is looking at, where regulation is and where do you perceive it going. I also like to look at what the black market is doing, right? Because that can be a good source of figuring out what's the next wave. But yeah, so wow, that's to me that really stuck out. And I want people to really pay attention to that. Like pay attention to regulation. Like
Mhm,
what is the regulation saying?
mhm.
So yeah, so you join this group, you're like, hey, Meta, Facebook isn't HIPAA compliant. Why are they sharing this information? So what was your next step from going to, I wouldn't say ideation, but inspiration to actually launching? Walk us through that.
Yeah, so one of my team members heard about a competition from the American Academy of Pain Medicine. And so they were having a competition for pain innovation. So, first time ever pitching, I won the competition amongst three others, no, five other startups. There were different categories. In my category, I was the winner. So that kind of gave me the idea that, hey, this is actually something people want, doctors want. I can build a business out of this. And so initially, I started off as a consultant for doctors to learn how to do it. But now I decided I'm going to build a platform and be, a source of truth when it comes to shared visits. So that's how the whole thing kind of evolved into a business.
Mm. so you started out as consulting, and then when did you? Oh, and congratulate! I know this is super late, but congratulations on winning that competition. So when did you notice that you needed to go from just doing consulting to actually building more of a software solution?
Yeah, it was when I won that award. Initially, it was, yeah, when I won the award, I thought, you know what? I mean, there were other things that played into it. I don't know, we don't have as much time. I have to go get my kids in bed very soon, but I'll say this. The main thing that really triggered me was the fact that I got validated by a medical association that, thought this was a great idea. They wanted to support, and they still support. And I thought, if I was to get this thing to grow and scale beyond me, I need to make it a platform that people can be a part of, like somebody built Facebook, and right now you're doing with Facebook what you want. Mark Zuckerberg has no idea what you're doing, And so that was the idea behind it. Like, I need to make this bigger than me and leave, outlive my own even thoughts and passions about, community growth with patients and doctors, in an appointment.
Got it. Oh, this was one thing I was going to say too, because what it sounds like you're also are taking like an education kind of strategy as well too, right? Where or like more, I would take somewhat of like a marketing education because we are very well educated on just random stuff just because it's like normal, right? Like drink water, right? So your platform is solving that gap for the average patient who doesn't know the specifics of their illness or ways to prevent it, where you're basically creating uh, a wire. I don't know why wireless came to mind, but like a wireless, I don't know, boundless connection between people who have the same similar illness or sickness that can share their learnings together, right? That's essentially what Wellness Fits is, correct?
Exactly. So what Wellness Wits creates an ecosystem around a condition. So if there's someone who has diabetes, anything relating to diabetes, you will learn in the group. You also have a doctor who can help you with managing your diabetes, and you'll have other people who have diabetes, maybe in your age group or your local area. We try to stratify and categorize patients based on something they have in common. Even though you have the same diagnosis, you might not have the same lived experience, So, for example, your culture might be different from mine, and I might be eating foods that are more healthier than your culture. So based on that, we're trying to help people determine what kind of group they're going to belong to, and that's how we educate them.
Perfect, perfect. So I know we gotta go, but I gotta hit you with one more question. How do you juggle being an entrepreneur and being a mom, being a wife? Like how do you juggle that?
It's exactly as you've seen me today, where my kids are doing things around, and I just do it. I do my business around my family. I've been blessed and so fortunate to have a husband who is very hands-on. And so he tends to spend a lot of time with the kids. And so we share our time. When I have to travel for work, he's home. He's able to, be in the kitchen, whip up something for the kids and for himself. So that's worked out great. And then also having a strong team behind me that support. And it really helps to be able to work from home as well. And so it gives me the ability to pretty much grow the company as my family grows. You know what I mean? And so I advise any entrepreneur out there, don't separate your family from what you're doing. They're part of it, and you're probably doing it because of them. And so do it with them, and the everybody's going to be successful together. The children, your husband, your marriage, and your business and team members. Everybody gets to succeed and see you succeed as well. So do it together, and you never feel alone.
Yeah, yeah. And you said you was gonna say something last before you left, so I made sure not to forget that.
Even if you forget, I'll say, hey, can I say one more thing? Yeah, it's a very simple philosophy, and this is something that I live by, and I'm encouraging other people to, is that, how people say, oh, if somebody compliments you and says, hey, Corey, you're one in a million, how would you feel?
Um, you want the real answer?
Yeah,
Of course.
You're one in a million, right? You'd feel great. You feel special, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, of a million people, I am one and I'm special. But I would like for you to take it further. You're one in a lifetime. There is never in this lifetime, ever, 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 gonna be another Curry, right? Nobody's gonna be like you. Nobody's gonna work in your exact shoes. Nobody's gonna work in your exact journey. And so, because you're one in a lifetime, take care of you because you are different. You're special and you're worth fighting for. So that's my philosophy in life. I'm not one in a million, I'm one in a lifetime. I take care of me
Yeah.
before I take care of others. So that's my final thought. And
So, you say that to your kids every night before you put them to bed. I'm assuming.
no, I don't. We have our mantra. I usually tell them we're always together, loving each other, never alone. That's
Mm,
what I share with
love
my
it. Love
children.
it. Love
Always
it.
together, loving each other, never alone.
Yeah. Well, I know you gotta go. Thank you, Dr. Kike Aduba. Um, I really enjoyed our conversation. It's funny. I kind of used it as like, oh, like I'm talking to a dietitian, and I love that we just let it go like that. But yeah, thank you for this opportunity. I don't want this to be the last time you come here. I want to, keep me a part of your journey. I'm excited to see you grow. Um, and yeah, keep doing what you're doing. And congratulations on being a part of the convoy with the Nigerian president coming over here and walking him around. So super kudos to that. And I want to thank y'all for joining us again. My name is Corey. Stay trapping. This is Trap Talks, where we discuss the intersection of culture and tech. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Corey. This was quite an interesting conversation. I wish you the very best, on the podcast and, any other endeavors you're, pursuing. Hopefully we stay in touch and continue to, learn from each other.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we definitely are. We definitely gonna stay in touch. You're gonna see me around. So, all right. I know it's bedtime. So get those kids to sleep.
No worries. Well, take care and take good care of yourself.
You too. Thank you.